Pokemon trainers everywhere. With a new expansion pass coming for Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, you will be getting 2 new areas, more than 200 new Pokemon, new adventures and new story and new characters and lots of new stuff, all for one low price of whatever it happens to be priced at where you are in the world. Here in Australia, it's about $45, so it's about $22 per episode or chapter or expansion or however you want to phrase it. And rather predictably, the Pokemon community at large has reacted like the Pokemon community at large reacts to anything over the last 5 years or so, at least. It's been getting worse and worse because the Pokemon community is incredibly toxic, which is ridiculous for a bright, colorful, happy time game like Pokemon. I mean, this isn't Call of Duty. This isn't an EA title. This isn't even Fallout. Right? This is Pokemon, a colourful, cheery, primary-coloured, splashy game with monsters and children, and for some reason the community is just incredibly toxic. So toxic that despite being a Pokemon fan and someone who's played Pokemon since when their hair was dark, back 20 years ago when they first came out, I've been playing all of the Pokemon, all the mainstream Pokemon, not so much on the side games. It's a topic for a different video, I guess. But for 20 years of Pokemon, I love Pokemon. I always, I buy the new games. I buy both copies of the new games pretty much. Well, not pretty much, but literally every generation. And the third tier game, if it's a third tier game, I'll pay for it again then. I bought Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, despite them being near identical and kind of a cringy moment in Game Freak's history. And sort of as this one of the tipping points to the fan community, I think, is that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon stuff where there's a whole big rigmarole there about, why they didn't do this and why they're doing it now, and is it a good thing that there's no third tier version or Ultra Sword edition and things like that versus charging you for missing content and to fix it and making you pay to fix an unfinished game. I'm sick of hearing about that. How Pokemon Sword and Shield is the shortest Pokemon game ever. It's not. The average playthrough is about 20-25 hours, which is exactly what I usually spend playing through a regular Pokemon game. And the arguments about, they're making us pay for the extra 200 Pokemon. No, they're not. You can still get the other Pokemon if you trade them in from someone who did pay for the expansion pass. But amongst all of this fan anger boiling away at the moment for whatever reason any fan might have to be angry about. I'm not saying there's no reason not to be angry about anything. There are some stuff that Game Freaks do that's just why? And that's why, for example, you are now seeing this footage. The one on the right is a texture mod, fan-made, community-made, nothing hard to create or even implement. Nothing has changed about the game's models, nothing has changed about the game's coding, nothing has changed about performance. The only thing this mod does is swap out the flat images that are wrapped around the 3D models already in the game for ones that have been made by a person who cares about how the game looks. And why Game Freak couldn't do this on their own is beyond me. They definitely have a talent pool capable of making textures that look good. And that's something I'm personally a bit pissy about. I mean, when the games first launched, there was that controversy about how bad the trees looked in the wild area. In particular, those trees are terrible. And in fact, there's another mod that just fixes the trees, leaves all the other textures the same, just fixes those freaking trees. And then this morning, I was just sort of poking through what was trending on Twitter and stuff like that. And I saw this post. And it was one Pokemon sort of focused news publication attacking another Pokemon news publication for they're like, why'd you bother doing this? Because there was in some of the footage of the new in the trailers of the new expansion passes, there was a mouse cursor on one of the images, and there was also some mouse cursors in the opening and the credits roll of the original games too. It was just a silly little mistake, I'm not sure how it managed to happen, but there's a mouse cursor in some of the cinematics that roll, which was pretty embarrassing. But mistakes do happen. But now the mistake has happened again, either as a sneaky little deliberate thing from Game Freak, which I don't think it's likely to be that. I think it's just another silly little mistake that has something to do with how they produce these particular trailers or how they capture these particular elements for the game or for the promotional stuff. And so between that example and the example I just gave of the textures in the game, there is a pretty solid argument to be made about Game Freak's lack of attention to detail, lack of passion in making these things as good as they possibly can be. They just kind of make it and go, good enough, and shove it out the door. On the other side of that coin, reacting to stuff like this as an angry, torch-bearing mob is not the best way to go about making changes happen because, but I also imagine it's hard to stay motivated as a game developer or anybody out there making content, basically, when the most toxic parts of the so-called fan community are absolutely grasping at anything and everything to be mad about as loudly as possible because internet culture rewards that fandom outrage. It gets clicks, it gets attention, it gets validation, because if you're out there shouting out something you're angry about, you'd be damn sure there's going to be a whole lot of other people going, hey, I'm angry about that too, yeah! And you go, validation. The thing I hate, other people hate too. That must mean I'm right. I feel righteous. It's psychological. Simple, stupid, human psychologically. Psychology is the word I'm shooting for. See? None of us are perfect. But on the publisher side of things, whether you are a complete one-man band as I am, or whether you are one of the YouTubers with a much bigger channel and you've got your own editors and your writers and people who just, a person who just does the thumbnails for you and all that sort of stuff, or all the way at the other end of the spectrum where you're sort of IGN or something and you've got your own offices and you've got many people working for you generating content, it's hard to resist not tailoring your content for that trigger, for that hater bait, because it gets attention, it gets views. And when you are this end of the camera, that's important, because without that, well, I'd be homeless. I need to get views at least at a basic level just to earn enough to pay my rent. And one of the most frustrating things, and this is why I tend to avoid making a hater bait type comment, and I make it sometimes just because maybe I'm passionate about it, or maybe it's just deliberate bait to try and kick the channel up a bit for whatever my motivations might be. Occasionally I'll do it. I try not to do it all the time because I don't want to be that channel who just does nothing but piss and whine and moan and hater bait. But it's your fault. You people have no self-control. You latch on to this bait, this hater bait, every single time it's out there, and it just generates and snowballs. And because it's popular, I do it again, and that's popular. And oh, this works. This kind of content works. This kind of content's helping me pay my bills. And before you know it, you become a channel that just does nothing but that hater bait content and all the stuff I enjoy doing, like the positive stuff, the stuff that I hope is useful or interesting or insightful or just amusing. Suddenly that stuff doesn't get the views, so that stuff gets made less often. I enjoy myself less. My channel becomes more negative as a whole, but I can afford to eat. There is a strong incentive for making the kind of content that just makes a big deal out of any miserable little shitty mistake that any game dev or movie or whatever makes. I mean, I was on Twitter today, there's still people pissing and whining about the last Star Wars movie. Still whining about, oh, this person didn't get enough screen time. It's because they're a different color and they're a woman. No, it's just because that character wasn't that important to this part of the story. Or possibly it's because the last time that person was in one of these films, you guys did nothing but hate on her. So much so she had to delete her social media to avoid you. And now you're angry she's not in it. It's a no-win situation. What am I supposed to do at my end? Tell me, what am I supposed to do at my end when this kind of hater bait content is the way I could be more successful if I did nothing but that. That's all there is to it. I could be more successful if I did nothing but focus on that. But I choose not to because of personal reasons. But I might have to change that policy. It's been a few lean months, I got to tell you. YouTube being YouTube. What's the man to do? This video took an interesting turn. I didn't script this at all. This is all off the top of my head. And I started out talking about Pokemon stuff, and we just sort of try it off down the end here. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. I'll catch you next time. Benefit of doing it like this is the tail end of this video is the interesting sort of dichotomy of argument going on here, the pros and cons of the situation. The first part of the video was nothing but sort of the hater baity type stuff, and they won't watch the end of the video anyway, because they'll get all mad about whatever it is I say they don't disagree with. I'll type on the keyboard and leave their angry comment and piss off without watching the entire video to get the entire context of what I'm trying to say here. And the few of you who are left to listen to the entirety of the context are the people who are most interested in this kind of the conversation. So maybe that's how I'll format my videos from now on. But then again, doing it that way also punishes me too, because YouTube, one of the YouTube's metrics is watch time. When do people abandon the video? I can't. I can't. What am I going to do?